and this is my show about real estate. And today I have James Thompson with us. And James, yeah, like I said, I just kind of waved. I met James, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and but you're here today to talk about the mortgage tax bill. So tell us a little bit about, you're an actual lawyer here in town.
I am. I'm a general practice lawyer. I do a lot of different kinds of cases, everything from civil rights cases. I do a lot of estate planning, and then I've also done some real estate cases as well.
And then you did something crazy one day and said, hey,
I want to run for Congress.
Yeah. Congress. Not only once, but twice.
Yeah, I didn't like the result the first time around. We came so close, so going to run again in 2018.
So, but we're here today to talk a little bit about the mortgage tax bill that's happening. So, when I go to sell a house, what the people are really concerned about when I first talk to them is where it's located, what the floor plan is, how much their interest rate might be, and how much their house payment's going to be each month. Nobody ever says to me, hey, do I get that deduction when I own a house? I never in 16 years have had anybody ask me about it. But they get it, but they may not get it if this new tax bill is passed, correct?
Well, it depends on the value of the house.
Okay.
The new tax bill that has been reconciled between the Senate and the House allows us to continue deducting our interest that we're paying on our mortgage up to the value of a home of $750,000.
Which is most of us.
Well, yeah. So 90% of us, or more, are probably not going to be affected too much by that. One of the other areas that goes into that, though, too, is going to be the ability to deduct state and local property taxes, which they cap at $10,000, though. So that could affect you also, depending on how much you're paying.
Right.
So the new bill does definitely affect us quite a bit. But the individual homeowners, unless they happen to be extremely well off, is probably not going to feel the bite of the mortgage interest or the removal of the mortgage interest deduction.
Okay, because the average house in Wichita, which most people may or may not know, the average house is $180,000. And the hot point right now, if you have one for sale, is under 125. If I get a listing under 125 in really good shape right now, gone in days. And anything above that, it's moving a little slower. And then once you get into the 200 range, it's much slower.
Right.
So the average Wichitan's living in a house of 180 or under. So I guess in all this won't affect them majorly.
The tax bill, as it stands right now, won't affect that particular portion of their home as far as being able to deduct that out. There are other provisions within that tax bill that are going to really hurt them, though.
Right.
Which, at the end of the day, people probably do need to be taken into consideration when they're trying to figure out whether or not to buy a home. This new tax bill does away with personal exemptions. So in January of 2018, in just a month, people are going to see their paychecks decrease significantly because, most people, if they have, 2 children and a spouse, they've got 4 exemptions listed on their payroll. And so that's going to go away. And they're going to immediately see a decrease in their paychecks.
Right, their take-home pay is going to be less.
Right, exactly. And the take-home pay will be less, with the understanding at the end of the year that they'll be able to get, now instead of that personal exemption of $4,150, they'll be able to get this $2,000 tax credit for each child. But, again, that's not going to offset that. So anybody that is working class, middle class, however you want to define that.
Average family.
Average family in Wichita, right. Most of us are going to actually get hurt significantly by this tax bill. My campaign manager has 4 children, and it's going to probably cost her about $8,000 a year. So, more, right. But this will be taxed on anyway.
Right.
And so there's definitely going to be some significant changes coming in. But fortunately, for the real estate market, the mortgage interest won't be part of that. They decided to keep that in. The original House bill that was suggested was removing that ability.
Yes.
It was my understanding of it. And then they went back and forth between, okay, well, we're going to do a $500,000 or $1 million. And then what they've settled on is $750,000. If it's less than that, then you can still deduct your mortgage interest up to that amount.
And that makes sense for most of us.
Right.
So, but that's one of the great things about homeownership is you do get a deduction off of your taxes for owning a home.
Right.
But you get to pay property taxes, so that's kind of an offset as well. You get a deduction, but you're paying property taxes to your county or your state.
Right, and they're, I mean, what they've essentially done is they're playing the three-card Monty with you on where you're going to pay it. It's like, oh yeah, you don't have to pay you don't have to worry about the mortgage interest deduction. We're not going to get rid of that, but we're going to increase the amount of taxes that you pay. And oh, by the way, the property taxes that you pay and state and local taxes that you pay, you're not going to be able to deduct those off either. In exchange for, we're going to increase our standard deduction, which means that normal people are probably going to see an increase in their taxes, and that's going to be unfortunate. I feel bad for realtors with some of this, though, because business deductions are going to also change, and the ability for you to deduct off a lot of the things that you probably do when you're trying to sell a house is going to go away.
Right.
And that's going to be a huge hit for the real estate market, for the realtors anyway, and trying to move property.
Yeah, because there's things that people don't realize that we pay for.
Right.
I pay for signs, virtual tours. We're basically a 1099 person at our brokerage, and most people don't know that. They think we're an employee and that the brokerage pays for our gasoline and our car insurance. I have to have special car insurance because if I have a client in the car and we're in a car wreck and that client is hurt, I have special insurance just for that.
Right.
If they are staying a house with me and something happens, I have to have an umbrella policy for that. And so there's all kinds of expenses that I have that a general person may or may not have that I have to have, and including paying for virtual tours. So all those fancy pictures that you like to look at on the internet at night, we pay a fancy photographer with their fancy camera to come take those pictures. So
realtors in particular are going to be hit kind of harshly with this, not just because of the expense that you paid their way, but dues and everything else that you pay as well.
It's just days before Christmas. You're just going to be bad. It's going to make me cry.
I'm sorry to deliver that to you. It's not too late, though. You can also call your congressman and tell them to vote no on it.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's going to affect a lot of small businesses, but in particular, I mean, the realtors and will suffer. You have a lot of dues that you have to pay as well. Different organizations that you have to pay a part of.
I just paid $550.
Right.
And that was for the local dues, the state dues, and the national dues. And then I pay $145 every quarter for being a member of the MLS.
Right.
So yeah, there's lots of things I pay for. So thanks.
Merry Christmas, all realtors.
Thanks, James. I thought this was more informative. Now I need therapy.
I can come back and talk about that with you at a later date, I guess.
Well, like you said, we still have time if you want to call your congressman and tell them to vote no. You still have time to do